manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome everyone to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're live here on WYSL from noon to 1 on this lovely fall Thursday. This show is going to be kind of all over the place. For those of you watching online, I put like 3 topics in there. Actually, I have like 5 topics because I've been doing all this research all week and haven't had somewhere to put it all, right? So this is all my stuff that wasn't enough to quite be a whole show. Some stuff left over from yesterday, and again, just other things that I think are salient and interesting right now. So we're going to cover a few different topics today. And if you're listening out there, either on the radio, again, we're live here until 1 o'clock, give me a call, 585-346-3000. Again, that's 585-346-3000. Give me a call and tell me what's on your mind. What issues right now are not being covered that we need to cover and aren't getting enough attention? You know, we're at a moment in time, of course, where everything's getting consumed by the presidential election. It's incredibly important. You know, I don't want to dismiss the importance of presidential politics. There's going to be a debate tonight, which that was the another topic I wanted to bring up, the debates. It sounds like they're going to have a mute button, which that's what the Commission on Presidential Debates proposed, and I think that's actually overdue. I think that most debates probably should have a mute button. You shouldn't need that, but you really should have it. If you have someone who's just going to be, talking over the other, just going over the whole time, I don't know. I'm a little bit off on debates. I don't know how much value they continue to provide, at least in that setting, right? If you're able to have a discussion with your opponent and be challenged on the facts as you present them. If an opponent's making a ridiculous claim, or a journalist in a town hall might not challenge that as aggressively as someone running against them. And we saw that in the town halls last week with President Trump and his Democratic opponent, Joe Biden, where Joe Biden, totally avoided the question on whether he'd be doing court packing. And that's an important question. That is an absolutely valid question. That is his administration going to push to appoint more members of the Supreme Court in order to essentially change the laws of the land? Yeah, that's absolutely a critical policy decision that the voters deserve an answer on. Didn't get that much pushback on. President Trump got a lot of pushback. I got to be honest, I only watch clips of both. I hate national two-party politics. I watched the Dr. Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate, also did a town hall with Matt Welch at Reason as well. So that's worth checking out too if you're interested in that type of thing. If at this point you feel like you still need to collect more information to decide who to vote for. I know who I'm going to vote for. I've kind of known for a while, but if just know again that there are other options out there. But again, today we're talking about a number of topics, just other stuff that's left out there, stuff that maybe can't do a full episode on. And I want to hear from you. If you're out there, you're listening online, on Facebook, on our Andrew C. Hollister page, on our Radio Free New York page, on our YouTube channel, any of those, if you're listening, and there is a topic that we have not covered that we should cover, today's a good day to do it. Just trying to get a bunch of stuff in there. And I want to wrap up this first segment by mentioning a couple things that I forgot to mention in yesterday's discussion. We started talking about the parole of Jaleel. I can't pronounce his last name, but we started talking about him. His birth name was Anthony Bottom. And the one thing I forgot to mention yesterday is he did insist on his innocence for quite a while. He was in prison for 50 years, and I feel like that's worth mentioning. He had insisted on his innocence for many, many years, and then wasn't it until the last couple years where he started to tell the parole board that he expressed remorse for it. Um, and so that's, I guess, it's an interesting aspect of the parole system is that if you insist on your innocence, the parole board assumes, well, you must have been guilty beyond the shadow of a doubt uh, because you were convicted in court and sentenced. And so if you insist on your innocence, you can't therefore show remorse, and therefore you're not reformed, and you can't be let out. And so that's another interesting aspect of the story that it didn't end up covering. And although it's a very good discussion, if you have a chance, make sure you go listen to yesterday's episode. I think we had a good discussion about the criminal justice system in general, but that's another part of it too. Is that if you're in prison, you insist you're innocent. Sometimes that can go against you when you're seeking parole, when you're saying that you ought to be let out for any number of reasons, telling people you're innocent and whether or not this guy is. I have no idea the specific innocence or guilt of this man in this case, but I will say he insisted that he was innocent for a very long time, and obviously the families feel very differently and very passionately about the about whether or not this man should remain in prison. And I got a question online. What's the call number? Thanks, Will. The number is 585-346-3000. 585-346-3000. Give us a call. Will, if you got something on your mind, love to talk to you. Let me know what you are thinking about and what we should be covering today. Kind of related to that, Andrew and I presented a discussion about the parole system itself. And I thought about this because there's, in relation to the criminal justice reform bills, like the bail reform bills that had come out last year, there's also ongoing discussion about whether or not the parole system, like the post-release parole system, ought to be reformed too. And the reason why, and I'd kind of pushed this with Chris Missick last week, when he's a candidate who's running for New York State Senate, New York 55. And I kind of pushed this a little bit with him. He had said that he was against any type of parole reform in this way. And let me just present the argument in favor of parole reform, right? And then we can discuss whether or not that's valid or not. And basically, it's like this. It's just that the parole system right now, if you're out, the criticism is that any tiny violation can end up with you back in prison, right? Oh, and actually, I'll put a pin on that in a second. We got Sandy from Rochester calling. Sandy, what's on your mind?
Well, I was wondering why there was never any charges brought against the group of people that had the big party where there was the mass shooting, because I thought there was a curfew in effect, and B, Governor Como had said that he was going to enforce the law. I don't know about any gatherings more than, I think it was 10 people in the home, let's say. Had you heard anything? Were there any charges brought against any of these homeowners about these parties here?
Sandy, that's a great question, Sandy. No, as far as I know, I haven't heard about any charges, because it's a great question too, because if you're running an event, and it's an event more than 50 people, you can get charged there. You get the venue shut down. In Rochester, there's supposed to be a curfew. You're not supposed to have more than 10 people in your house after dark. I don't know, or after like 10 p.m. I don't know that any charges were filed. And maybe they should be, right? Like, if this is ostensibly what it was supposed to prevent, because the justification got a bit funny, because it kind of, they did it under COVID rules, but also said they were doing it to prevent gun violence, if I'm remembering that right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
It just bothers me because there's two sets of rules pertaining to how we're dealing with this COVID, and there's too many rules. How about that don't pertain to everybody? And I'm just annoyed with the whole thing. Let's just put it that way.
No, I agree with you. You know, it feels so arbitrary. It's not enforced consistently. The justifications end up being a bit flighty. And then, you know, we have a situation like this where there's a pretty egregious violation of the rules. And if we're going to have these in the first place, why enforce them? And if we don't need these rules in the first place, then why enforce them against anybody at all? Why selectively enforce?
Exactly. And now he wants to fine people without a mask. It just makes no sense to me. Yeah, they're all arbitrary. I just wondered if anybody had heard any differently, although I did not hear in the news. And the other thing that really bothers me is that the mayor is not out pounding on these streets because there's shootings every day and in these poor communities. And I don't understand why she's not thumping the streets and protesting all this violence that's going on. Every day there's a shooting, there's a stabbing, there's a killing. And, you know, I'm not want to say that, how do I put it, that these protests don't matter, but they don't matter for all the right reasons. Like, all those people of color's lives matter, not just the ones that got shot by opposing colors.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Thanks so much for the call, and we'll continue discussing that a bit after the break. Thanks so much for joining us here on Radio Free New York.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Escape from the everyday to a getaway at Woodcliff Hotel and Spa. Woodcliff features elegantly appointed accommodations, creative cuisine, themed suites, full-service spa Elan, and is Rochester's best venue for outdoor wedding receptions overlooking the city skyline. Woodcliff Hotel and Spa, where the experience is extraordinary. Located in Fairport, call 585-381-4000 or visit woodcliffhotelspa.com.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for participating in this conversation about what topics are important to you. And just kind of wrapping up the points that the last caller had made is, I can't find anywhere. I tried to look for it over the break, whether or not charges are filed for the people who held the house party. I didn't see anything for that. But if there is something and anyone wants to find it, my friends listening online, send me a link. I'll bring it up on air. The one breaking news thing for that, or the recent news thing for that, is there's now a $10,000 reward for information regarding the killers in that situation. Despite the fact that there's a party with hundreds of people there haven't been enough people bringing information to help catch the people who actually did the shooting. You have to think that someone there knew what was happening and could come forward with information, and for whatever reason, whether it's mistrust with the police or whether I don't know what it could be, they haven't come forward with that. So that's really sad. And I'd love to have someone from the city eventually come on the show too to talk about what tangible solutions are there to gun violence in the city. But we do have another caller on the line. We have Dr. David Miller from Chili. Sir, what is on your mind?
Hi, constant listener to Radio Free New York, so thank you for your great coverage. I wanted to ask your listening audience and why we are tolerating the circumstances we have with the media regarding the vaccine development. We're selectively allowing different premises to be put forward by the NIH, by the CDC, and by industry on how soon we're going to get a vaccine. I've been involved in HIV research for 30 years. Developing a vaccine for a retrovirus is much, much easier than it would be for a coronavirus that's consistently mutating and changing its characteristics, its genome. And you see this going on consistently. Meanwhile, we're ignoring data that comes out from reliable sources like the Burkitt Institute in Australia that shows that COVID can survive up to 28 days on surfaces. And that was published. It was in The Guardian. It was in the New York Times. We saw this data. It doesn't get any coverage. We're seeing a selective kind of filter as to what the general public who isn't in the scientific community is allowed to see, and therefore allowed to build both their expectations on and allowed to support. Now, I know most members of Congress haven't gone to medical school. I know most members of the media don't read the peer-reviewed journals out there. But the data that's coming out is defining public policy in ways that's completely inappropriate. And it's going to cost lives. It's going to cost people their well-being long-term. In Nature Immunology, we just saw data that cross-reactive antibodies cause the neurological symptoms we're seeing with certain COVID-19 patients, and it's a large population. That's definitive data. We know how to modulate the immune system. We have drugs that can do that right now that could stop that type of neuropathology, that type of neurological illness. It doesn't get any media coverage. So my question is, why is that? Why do we have this kind of selective exposure to certain aspects of this pandemic and not others?
That's a great question too, and I don't have a good explanation for that, and then I'm part of the media too, right? So, and I really appreciate your call, and I want you to stay on the line to answer a few questions if you can,
Sure.
Well, I'm like, how do you think the public would benefit from understanding these things, and where do you think that the gaps in knowledge are most serious, and then how do we act accordingly on that knowledge?
Sure. So here's something that was in the general media. In Newsweek, just a few days ago. Coronavirus traces found on bleached surfaces after 8 days, as study finds it can live on skin for 9 hours. We know definitively that the coronavirus can live on a bleached surface after 8 days. If you go to the Hong Kong International Airport, which is a gigantic airport, it has its own zip code, they have been spraying airports internationally with disinfectant agents that we commonly use in laboratories, that are very inexpensive, that we know will kill the coronavirus. If you go to airport JFK or LaGuardia or the Rochester International Airport, there's no premise of disinfection with agents that can disinfect, so we could start flying again. If you go into any laboratory where we're working on coronavirus or HIV or any infectious agent, you have ultraviolet lights up everywhere. You have HEPA filters and ozone machines, because we know those things kill infectious airborne pathogens. We could be installing those, and they're cheap, within airport settings so we could start flying again. We could be providing sensors, which are very cheap. We use, I'm not endorsing anybody's product, a product called All Clear here in hotels, so you'd know that the room you're staying in had been filtered. So rather than seeing our hospitality industry, our airline, the entire airline industry burn and destroy our economy, we could be doing what we know other countries have done, which is clean, sanitize, and filter. There are sanitization processes that can be utilized and have been utilized in sports arenas around the world. The rest of the world isn't shutting down the way we are, because they're using viable interventions that we know have therapeutic effect, have preventative effect. And having worked in HIV for close to 35, 40 years now, we know that during the height of the AIDS crisis, people were still getting infected. We knew condoms worked. They didn't use them as a whole, and the AIDS crisis in different key populations got much worse. We know why. We keep on thinking masks are going to work. Masks don't work. So here's one basic consideration from somebody who works in a laboratory, who's worked in BSL 3 at biosafety level 3 and 4 arenas, that no doctor will dismiss, including Tony Fauci, because I've asked him about it. The virus is ocularly transmitted. You can catch the virus through your eyes. So therefore, we've got to filter it out of the air. You could go into Wegmans, and we could have small ozone machines in each aisle. That would kill up a lot of the virus. We could be spraying everything with hydrochloric acid, which is completely inert to the human body, but kills COVID and most other pathogens, and is used in every laboratory. Why aren't we doing that? And the question really is, why isn't the media asking, why aren't we doing the same thing that other countries with much less resources have been doing and should be doing, and instead of just listening to, excuse my language, Governor Meathead saying, wear your mask. The masks don't stop the incursion of more infection, because the virus has ocular transmission capabilities, and a little piece of cloth on your mouth, over your mouth and nose, isn't going to stop a virus that can go through those microns.
I mean, yeah, no, sir, those are some excellent points. You've given us a ton to think about, and it brings us really into the next subject I wanted to talk about, which is the National Guard place at the airport. So thank you so much, Dr. David Miller, for informing us of all that stuff. We'll be back with more Radio Free New York in just a few minutes.
Vote for law and order. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for today. Lots of clouds out there, a cooler day, a little bit breezy at times this afternoon, and there will be some rounds of showers, so keep that umbrella on standby once again. Temps today, 50s to around 60. Tonight, clearing, staying in the 50s out there, a little breezy. Friday, turning much nicer, much warmer, near record warm in the upper 70s with some sunshine. I'm Rich Cornelia, WYSL.
Heads up, economic hardship, loss of jobs, arbitrary closure of valuable businesses, all brought to you by Democrats. Remember, in November.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Hello, I'm Alan Ginsberg of the A.M. Ginsberg Advisory Group. Hope you're coping well with the changes we've all had to make in day-to-day living during these crazy times. So, now that you've done all your projects, cooked every new recipe you have, and made your YouTube videos, ask yourself, are your financial plans and investments working in today's world? Is your family secure if you die or become disabled? Are the wills you made 10 or 20 years ago still valid today? Now may be the time to evaluate where you are financially and review your estate planning as well. We're available for appointments by phone or Zoom meeting, or we can meet in my office with CDC compliant procedures. Please give us a call, 585-377-4720, or check out our website at amginsbergadvisorygroup.com.
Securities offered through Securities America Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors Inc. AM Ginsberg Advisory Group and the Securities America companies are separate entities.
Ready to Respond Training Services offers CPR, AED, and first aid training across Western New York and beyond. High-quality training from top educators and instructors who have worked in the EMS field. For more information, call 585-281-4208 or visit readytorespond.net. Inform, engage, equip. Ready to Respond Training Services. 585-281-4208.
Geneseo Hardware and Rental is having a grand opening this weekend at the new expanded location on Route 20A east of the village of Geneseo. This Friday and Saturday, Geneseo Hardware and Rental will have a special sale. View items on Facebook and Instagram, plus giveaways, no purchase necessary. Free food and refreshments on Saturday from 11 to 1. Geneseo Hardware and Rental, Route 20A next to Wegmans Plaza. Visit geneseo-rental.com.
Emani, time for school, baby. Emani, time for school. Emani, it's time.
A different couch, a different floor, the backseat of a car. Over 2,000 Rochester school-aged children are homeless, but now there is hope. The Open Door Mission Cold Water House for moms and their children. opendoormission.com/doves.
Medicare. Polano & Company makes it easy. If you are new to Medicare or reviewing your options, give Polano & Company a call. We're local and can help you make your best decision at no cost to you. Polano & Company is located at 15 Schoen Place on the Canal in Pittsford. Call us at 585-385-6010 or visit us at polanoco.com. Polano & Company, serving the greater Rochester area for more than 35 years.
Tom Walls. Let me cook you the best cheeseburger you've ever had, the crispiest french fries. Let me serve you a frosted mug of Tom Walls root beer that we make one small batch at a time. Tom Walls.
Tom Walls.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We're here on WYSL on this Thursday, the 22nd, until 1 p.m. So if you're listening to the live show, the live version of the show, give us a call, 585-346-3000. Thank you for the call. Thank you for Dr. David Miller, who called last segment, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of that. And of course, I want to give a shout out down the line to our friends over at WACK out in Newark and WENY, The Patriot, down in the Southern Tier. We love our listeners on those stations as well. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for being with us online too. We're getting comments from Will Phillips, talking about representation in upstate and the rights that the New York State Senate and the Assembly have abdicated to Governor Cuomo. But yeah, the points Dr. Miller brought up are pretty good, and I've seen a little bit now, and I'll be honest, I've read just a tiny bit, so I don't want to speak too much to it because I'm not an expert. I have seen they're starting to explore using the UV light stuff on. I've seen them on subways and stores. I've seen some of the sprays being used in airports and in sports stadiums and stuff like that. And that's all, for sure part of what can help us open quicker, right? The mask thing, the argument is that, okay, you're spreading it less far, right? You're still breathing through your nose. But Dr. Miller made a good point. Yeah, you can get it through your eyes, as I understand. So unless you're wearing goggles in the grocery store too, there's a chance that you can get infected that way. So it's not just coming in through the nose and the mouth. It can come in through the eyes, and it's also why it's important to wash your hands with this stuff. And yeah, he'd kind of started out talking about the vaccine thing too. It's gonna be really tough coming up with a vaccine. There are people working very hard on it, but he made the point, well, this type of virus, and we have talked about this on this show. We talked about it with Sean Hannon last week when he was talking about the Great Barrington Declaration. With this virus, it evolved so quickly that there's not necessarily a guarantee that a vaccine is going to be really effective in totally squashing this thing. It might not work. So we have to find other ways to make sure that we're fighting this effectively. And, it can't just be any one thing. So yeah, using the HEPA filters in stores and in planes and things like that, that's going to be part of it. Trying to clean and recycle the air as quickly as possible. To pull as much of the virus out of the air as you can. I don't know much about the ozone filters. I've seen a bit about those before, but that could be another interesting solution to this. If we did have that in the stores, right? Are we able to set those up? Are stores already doing that? If anyone's ever seen that, again, send me links. I want to talk about this. This is interesting because I think we can have two positions in our mind at the same time, right? We can say okay, this is an illness that can seriously hurt some people. Let's do what we can to protect those people. Let's do what we can to keep people safe when they're just out shopping or gathering with friends or doing whatever. Let's take some precautions there. But how do we get to the point where we can get open again? So we can start having an economy that's robust and healthy, and people are able to live their lives without all of these arbitrary and frustrating restrictions. I think that's where we all want to be. Okay, so how do we get there? How do we get there effectively and safely? How do we bridge the gap between these two things to have open businesses, open schools, in a free society as much as possible? Instead, what we got this arbitrary stuff coming from Governor Cuomo, and I did want to talk about some of the state travel restrictions related to what he's doing right now. Despite some rising COVID numbers in some other states, he's not going to add New Jersey, Connecticut, or Pennsylvania to the travel advisory list. And again, right now you're supposed to quarantine with dozens of states. If you're traveling to one of these other states, you're supposed to quarantine coming in. In fact, if you're flying, New York State now has National Guard troops at the airports to check you in. And so you're supposed to, quarantine for 2 weeks coming back from, I'm trying to look at the number right now, and I was like, wait, is that right? Is it 43 other states? Holy cow. That's most of the country. And yet, again, these other, states bordering New York that are, they're controlled by Democrats too, and I don't know if that has something to do with that. People have told me that maybe it has something to do with that, but maybe not. You don't have to quarantine with those. And honestly, I'm not actually fighting for the quarantine for those states. I don't know that that's a good idea, right? Because there's a lot of people who, live in New Jersey or live in New York and either work in one state or the other, and especially downstate. People travel between the city and New Jersey all the time. Okay, makes sense. A quarantine would be really difficult to enforce in those states. Same with Pennsylvania. People travel back and forth all the time, particularly in South Tier. They might work in one state and cross the border into the other just for the day. Would you enforce every single time you have to do that? What if you can't work from home in that situation? Same with Connecticut. Same thing. People who live in Connecticut commute down to the city. Okay, that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't want a situation where Governor Cuomo is trying to strictly guard the border between those states and restrict travel and not let people move around. I don't want that. But what I do want is a consistent set of rules that make sense for travel between these states, and to let people travel and move freely. I can get the recommendations that, like, you probably should quarantine if you're in an area with a bunch of, a high number of cases. Okay, sure, you probably should do that. But can you get in? Can we get a rapid test? Can we, they're developing, testing right now that should be able to tell you whether or not you're infected almost immediately. It only takes a few minutes to do that. The expansion of that testing mechanism, I think, could do a lot to help us, again, get back to normal life as much as possible. I don't like the idea of this being the new normal. No, it's got to go back to some of the way things were prior to this. We need to continue on living our lives. We can't live in fear forever. And we can't, as we pointed out, we can't wait for a vaccine to save us in this situation. It might not be coming. Okay, so how do we just work with this as much as possible to be able to preserve our liberty and to be able to preserve our rights while still working to protect people? And I think what Dr. Miller hit on there was some ways to do that. Again, you can sanitize. We can clean the air. I'm still on. The mask. Again, we've talked about the mask a bunch. I'm still on. I get the concept behind your spit's going less far. I get that. It's not, as I understand it, going to prevent you from getting sick, because you breathing in with a homemade cloth mask ain't doing all that much for you. But it's, I've heard it described as like a Swiss cheese effect, right? Like, okay, maybe it provides some protection, but you combine it with a handful of other things, and it starts to make sense. Maybe don't be a close talker with people. Maybe wash your hands. Maybe clean the air a bit. So we do all these things combined. We can start to do that. Instead, again, what we're getting in New York State is stuff that's looking a bit creepy. I don't like the National Guard asking where we're going. If we're quarantining, where we came from, all that stuff. My libertarian instinct in me wants to be like, that's none of your business. Like, am I being detained? Like that's like my instinct with that type of stuff. I don't want to answer the questions. I don't want to talk to anyone. None of your business. Like that's my instinct. I get they're trying. If I'm giving them credit, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit, they're trying to keep people safe. Okay, sure. But I don't like the establishment of a norm that they have any business asking that stuff. I think it goes in a creepy direction. I think it is quickly heading down to, or at least, and maybe we may already be there, a violation of our constitutional rights, a violation of our privacy. No, we can't. We can't do that. I'm getting a comment. Travel down to Pennsylvania once a month. I'm afraid of not being able to see my family. Yeah, and that's coming from Will and mine. Yeah, if they updated that, if they changed those rules, that would be the situation that people like Will are facing. If you're going down to to Pennsylvania to see family, suddenly you're in a position that many people are in, that you're not able to see them anymore, or you're only able to see them over Skype. And should you be able to do that safely and effectively? My answer is yeah. I think we can find ways to do that safely. Let's use some common sense, folks. All right, we'll be back here on Radio Free New York in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And again, appreciate the calls that we've gotten today and the comments that we're getting online. If you want to participate in the discussion, leave a comment on our YouTube page or Andrew C. Hollister channel or our Radio Free New York Facebook page. And yeah, I'll see if I can respond to them on air. If I get to them in time. You got to get to them quick, though. Put your comments in right now. Or, of course, if you want to give us a call, participate in the discussion that way, 585-346-3000. All right, so we've gone our coronavirus discussions and the continuing erosion of our civil liberties in the name of safety. Topic covered. And I want to. We got a bit sidetracked. I want to cover the parole thing. I want to discuss this. We'll see. If you call, I'll go to whatever topic you want. But I want to see if I can discuss this, just because it is an important issue. It's something I think it's going to start coming up more probably in the beginning of next year, and I want y'all, the listeners, to be prepared for the discussions that are going to happen. So I'll give you kind of the pro reform talking points. We could talk about maybe some of the other stuff afterwards too. And basically the pro reform talking points are that there were 6,300 people in New York State sent back to prison after on parole in 2016, and 65% of those are reincarcerated for like technical parole violations, right? So these things are like, they missed an appointment, they had alcohol in their system, and like a handful of other things. And so the argument is being made that this is too harsh of approach to sending people back to prison, right? So if you're out on parole, and and I've spoken with kind of people on both sides of this, both the parole officers and people who've been on parole, and it's tough, right? Like if you have a job and you're working in a service industry job, and they're like, oh, you got to come at this time, and then, well, nope, that's when I have a appointment with my parole officer. Well, you have no choice. You have to go to that appointment, because the consequence is that you could be going back to jail if you don't make this appointment. It's really serious. It disrupts your life, makes it hard for you to integrate back into society more effectively. It ends up being really expensive. And again, as we talked about in yesterday's show, it's really, really expensive to send people back to prison. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be circumstances that we shouldn't send people back to prison for, right? Like, obviously, if you hurt someone when you're out on parole, if you commit another crime, if you do something serious in that regard, yeah, okay. Well, okay, I think that's a fair case to make, that, yeah, you should probably be going back to prison sooner than later, right? If you hurt someone again, if you break those conditions of parole. But some of the other stuff, maybe it doesn't make sense. So some of the changes they're talking about making are like, well, if you're going to send someone to prison for some technical violations, maybe cap that at 30 days, or not do it at all, or reduce the number of times doing that. Creating incentives for people to reduce the amount of time that they're on parole and they have to keep doing these things, like going to the meetings all the time. And then creating more due process in that. And also, if you are brought in on a parole violation, making sure that you have a speedy hearing as well, so you're not being detained for weeks at a time, losing your job, losing all the stuff that you had built, after reintegrating back into public life, that those don't erode for something that you may not have even done, right? And so you need to find a way to get people back. So this is the issue I wanted to talk about more with Andrew the other day, because I think it is tough. Again, having spoken with people who have experienced the system, it's so disruptive. You don't feel like it's possible to get back to normal life, and that's a dangerous thing if the goal of the criminal justice system is to get people back to that, to get people back to a sense of normalcy and setting them up for success. In other states like South Carolina, they've done some of these parole reform things. Louisiana has done it, and they've started to see positive results. Now, of course, the downside of this too is that there may be someone who is out on parole, who maybe gets off parole sooner because of the reforms, and then they go and commit another crime. Like, chances are that we're going to see that, and we have to weigh the costs and the burden on the lives of family who have served their time versus what's going to happen with that. And to me, I kind of err on the side of, I would rather people be free. I'd rather not be spending taxpayer dollars to keep more people in prison. I'd rather do what we can to to keep people out of the system. But there's going to be stuff that happens, and then so we'll keep an eye on this really closely, because I think this is going to be one of the bigger issues that are going to come up for New York State politics. It's going to be as big as the bail reform thing. Maybe we'll see. And getting comments from Tom saying innocent until proven guilty is a myth, punished until proven innocent is the norm. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of how it goes, particularly in the parole system too. Again, if you're out on that, you're kind of assumed to be guilty, and the process really works against you in many cases, and that's again an error on the side of an abundance of caution to keep potentially dangerous people out of society. That's what the system presumes in many cases, but I don't know that that's the right way to do things. All right, so I want to just switch topics one more time, just because I only got a couple minutes left, and I only have a few things to add about this, but I think it's important. So there's this new survey coming from the city of Rochester, and I want to bring it up because, again, I see these types of surveys coming from local governments, county governments, stuff like that all the time, and it's like a push survey, right? It's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, oh, you already have the answers that you wanted in mind. And I said the same thing when they did the 2034 plan, and I liked parts of that plan too, but they would ask these questions that were so leading that you have to help but wonder, like, who designed, was this survey even trying to be a good, well-designed survey to get legitimate public feedback from the citizens, from the people in this area? So I want to read one of the questions, and let's see. All right, so there's one right here. As you may be aware, we're at a crossroads with our police department, and we recently installed a new interim police chief, Cynthia Harriet Sullivan. Do you support the city providing her with more resources needed to build these community policing relations that would include working with the community police employees and other interested parties? Yes or no? Yes, no, or unsure. Obviously, that question's trying to lead you to say, yes, I want to spend more money on police departments. There's no. Do you believe community policing can be achieved without having specific municipal buildings and neighborhoods dedicated to policing efforts and other neighborhood initiatives? Yes, no, or unsure. Well, this one's talking about the removal of funding for the new East Main Street police station for the Goodman section in the city. It's only a handful of questions, but there's another one too. The governor issued an executive order that requires police departments to change and develop new policing policies and to review their training, general orders, and internal regulations. Do you think this should be developed in conjunction with independent experts? Yes, no, unsure. You know what answer they want to give. They built this survey knowing what they want to do, and they're hoping that people answer the way they want to answer so they can justify what they already planned on doing. The city of Rochester did this again with the 2034 plan. And if you look, if ever you see a survey from your local government, be on the lookout for these types of surveys that they're there to justify what they are already going to do, no matter what you say. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. More Radio Free New York. Thank you so much for joining us. Talk to you then.